So hello Maria and hello Peter. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the Expertise Library. How are you both? Are you okay, Maria?
Yes, I'm good, thank you.
All good with you? And how are you, Peter?
I'm doing well, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, I've been personally very excited to talk to you, a learned mind, about how do you cope with adapting to change and business. It's one of the areas that I'm fascinated by. So I'm very excited to get into the business of burnout. How do you eliminate that? How do you keep your mind and spirit and body and emotional character intact and strong? How do you build it up? And I'm even curious to find out, when do you, if it's possible, admit defeat on something and put that down for a bit, or give it a bit of a pregnant pause and start it again. So I'm very excited, and I know Maria was very excited to talk to you as well. So just to kick things off, could you just give us an overview of who you are and your business, and what sector, what your interests are, because that will be really good to frame.
I've been in startups for about 10 years. 10 years. And worked in a number of different sectors. Worked in cleaning up oil fields. Started a company doing that. That was my first company coming out of college. And then went on to raise about $1.5 million for a competitor to GoPro. And then eventually started a vertical farming company. So that was my last company. And really, I'd been working, hundreds of hours a week for 3 years straight, and then started my own company, and was burned out before I even did that. And so about 6 months ago, I really finally was like, you know what, I'm going to shut this thing down and figure out how to get to a place where I can feel good about life at all again. And so, I've been working on my own personal burnout, and then realized that there really aren't resources out there for anybody to learn how to recover from burnout. And so I've started working on materials to help people understand it, and then kind of a framework for how to recover. Mm-hmm. and get to a place of resilience. A lot of people say, we want to get to a healthy place, but that's kind of an ambiguous term. But if you can get to a place of resilience where you can bounce back when hard things happen, because hard things are going to happen in life. And so that's really the goal that I'm wanting to get people towards with these materials.
I'm curious. I now, just talking to you, and it's definitely really, I'm having to challenge my prior knowledge. I have been off the mindset that you try and deter any sort of heartache challenges. You just, you try and keep them at bay, because the bounce back is really hard. But is it important to embrace challenges and some sort of downfalls and failures, so that when you bounce back, you kind of bounce? Is the bounce back as important as the embracing of the failures or the challenges?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we get so many things thrown at us in life. It's impossible to avoid all challenges. It doesn't, some people are like, I'm going to take on every challenge, and you kind of find they're spread out and worn thin pretty quickly. I've tended to be one of those people at times in my life. but I think there's going to be a lot of starting a company is a really difficult thing. There's going to be a lot of challenges in that. But if you have the resilience to be able to bounce back quickly, make clear decisions in those tough times, I think you have a really good chance of being successful.
Yeah. And so just to understand, how do you describe burnout? What is that? What's the concept of burnout, and how does it relate to business entrepreneurs, owners, workers?
Sorry, and also it'd be great if you could talk about how you experienced burnout as well.
Yeah, it is a hard thing to define. There are a lot of groups trying to define that medical. The WHO. There's a lot of disagreement on what burnout is. So I'm not going to give you like a clear definition right now, but what I'll tell you is where my work with myself is centered around, and where I think a lot of people ended up burning out, is kind of a 3 pillars of what really allows people to burn out or keeps them from burning out if they're strong in these areas. Number 1 is purpose. I think if you're going to work long hours, you really need to have strong purpose around what you're doing. If you're focused on something, if it's like, oh, I'm doing this to help a friend, or I want to make a lot of money, but that's not really what you really want. I think that's going to be a big contributor to burning out. The second is agency. So having the ability within your job to make decisions. If you're working like crazy and other people are telling you what to do all the time, you have no ability to problem solve, no ability to think things through and make the best decisions for whatever your ownership is of your work. I think that's a really quick way to burn out. And I kind of separate that one into both systemic agency within your company. Does your company give you freedom to be able to think? And if not, maybe not the right company for you. And then personal agency. I didn't really, even though I had agency within every company I've been with to make decisions and choose how much I worked and all that, I didn't have it in my own brain. My own brain was pushing me to work all the time. If I had gotten 3 hours of sleep the night before because I'd been up all night having meetings and then had more the next morning early, I'd still be like, yep, let's go. And then finally, being able to set boundaries. Can you set boundaries with coworkers, with boss, with yourself? And I think those 3 things are really key to how we look at burnout. And within myself, what that looked like, I was tired all the time. I couldn't think clearly. So decision making wasn't as good as it used to be. When I moved out here to Colorado, my hands shook all the time. I think what else? Yeah, and my mind 100% of the time was just running on work all the time. Nothing else would go. It's just this loop of constant. And it wasn't like it was things that were like actually solving problems. It was just like I had this compulsive thing around work. So that was kind of what burnout looked like for me.
And how did you start to identify that? Did you think, oh, well, I'm just tired, I'm a bit run down, and then you realize, well, this feels a bit more prolonged than just feeling tired and run down and a bit foggy?
So in December, I've gotten into trail running since I moved out here to Colorado. And in December, I ran a 35-mile race. And after that race, it was the first time my brain had stopped. So I was so tired running, my brain stopped. It's icy. It's December here. I've got 10 miles left. It's getting dark. I've been running all day. And my brain stopped. And I was like, oh, like, as much pain as I'm in right now, this is awesome. And it lasted for a day or two, and then it was right back to it. But then I realized, like, when I started reading about burnout, people would say like, oh, take a week off, work a little. And I've done all those things, and nothing still helps. After that race, I took a couple weeks off, and still felt like my brain's racing. I'm exhausted still. Like these things that they've said will help aren't working. And so I realized I needed more. And then once I started talking to more people, there were multiple people I spoke with that said, you know what? I burned out and it took 2 full years to recover. And I was like, I'm not finding that anywhere online.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was when I realized that I was probably dealing with something a little bit more serious than I had thought.
I'm just curious to know, does your environment, greatly contribute to a sense of feeling burnt out? Not just the work environment, but just the general environment that you inhabit.
Yeah, I definitely think so. If you're, I think if you're at work and then coming home and family's a safe place all the time, and your house is peaceful and a happy place to be, I think that's a huge impact on how much burnout affects you, and probably how quickly you can recover. And yeah, I think home environment and friends and all that has a huge impact.
Yeah. Sorry, Marie, did you want to ask something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about, you talked about purpose, and then how you closed your company down. So what made you decide that wasn't the purpose, because it was your own business, and then to move to the next step, whatever that was?
So we were working on some big deals with hospitals, doing vertical farms, which is a great thing. They were going to do food as medicine programs, and that was a wonderful thing. I didn't want to have to, at the place I was in, I was like, I'm going to have to go raise $10 million for this first farm. That wasn't something I wanted to put myself through. That was going to sign me up for probably a decade of working on this. And while I love the industry, it didn't feel like something like I was excited about it. It was fun. I worked with great people, but I don't think it was actually what I really was feeling purpose around. And if that difference makes any sense, and so I came to a point where I was like, do I want to, raise a bunch of money, which is really hard, and then also say the next 10 years of my life are going to be on this industry? And I was like, I don't know that I do. And so I said, now it's better to shut it down now than continue on, and then in 2 years have a bunch of investors go like, nah, I don't really want to do this, and so I really had to spend a lot of time writing and thinking and looking at what do I want to work on, and that was a long and painful process. So.